Welcome to the best part of the year for foraging. The weather is getting colder, days are getting shorter, leaves are turning yellow and brown. This was always a time to pick up foods to survive winter. When we were hunter-gatherers, apart from hunting, our tribes would focus on gathering as much food that can be preserved for the long time as possible. When we started farming, these were the days of the harvest, when entire communities, men, women and children, would contribute to harvesting activities and more often than not have a celebration after, especially if harvest was a good one. The magic of the season is gone since we have mostly moved to our concrete jungles and have our 9-to-5 jobs to survive, but there are still things to look forward to. Let's see what our beginner plans to gather this time of the year with little to none chance of false identification. Sweet chestnuts can be found more easily in certain regions of the world, but in general it is now spread to most areas. So if the climate suits it, it could be found. It is native to Southern Europe, West Asia and North Africa. It was spread throughout Europe by Romans and throughout North America by settlers. But things are not as simple as see a chestnut and pick it, because you can stumble upon two kinds. One is a horse chestnut that is toxic. Another one is sweet chestnut, which is yummy. So which one is which? Horse chestnut, the one you don't want to eat, has a mostly smooth bark and leaves divided into several leaflets, kind of resembling human hand. The husks are very spiky, spikes are not too dense and are quite tough, kinda resembling Shell from Super Mario, well, at least a tiny little bit. Unlike horse chestnut, bark from sweet chestnut tree is not smooth and it kind of forms a spiral when you look at it. I found this very old sweet chestnut tree where this is quite visible. Sweet chestnut leaves are single, long and serrated. This is very easily noticed, even from a distance, due to their large size. Husks also have spikes, but much less tough than those of horse chestnuts and much more dense. If you had to choose which one of these will fall on your head, you would choose the sweet chestnut version, and your digestive system would make the same choice for the fruits inside. Sweet chestnuts usually have 1 to 3 flattish, angular nuts in each casing, while a horse chestnut has a single large, round, smooth, shiny one. At the end of the sweet chestnut nut, there is this cute tail, almost resembling a kind of small brush. These nuts are edible and used in cooking for flour, bread and other dishes. In some parts it is popular street food and you will often find a person roasting and selling them. Eating chestnuts roasted like this can make your hands look like you were working as a chimney cleaner. But it is a great feeling eating these, especially if it's a bit chilly outside. Before roasting or baking, you should make a cut on them so the pressure gets released when it's cooked. Otherwise, they might explode. Here is a bonus idea. If you have a wood stove or are able to make a campfire somewhere, you could put the chestnuts in aluminum foil and put it directly on the heated embers for some 10 to 15 minutes. Avoid direct fire and remember to make that cut. Crab apples are not something most people think of eating, but throughout history it was one of go-to foods to collect and survive off. These are the wild cousins of our well-known common cultivated apples we eat today. Our wild crab apple has actually a sad story, and out of respect for it, I want to make a minute to cover it. Most of crab apple trees today are actually kind of endangered. This tree is strongly reliant on bovines and equines to spread its seeds, and since wild horses and bison are not a thing anymore in Europe, Malus sylvestris, European crabapple, is going through some tough times. Additionally, closed canopy forests and heavily cultivated farmlands do not make things any better for it. So most of the time you will find this one near roads and on forest edges, trying to catch some sunlight to survive. What you will also find often is hybrids. Crabapple often creates hybrids with cultivated kinds. So if you find wild apple bigger than 3 centimeters in diameter, it is some kind of hybrid. Here is example of either a hybrid or a cultivated one I found in one forest edge. You can see fruits are bigger and more resembling something you would buy at the supermarket. They do have kind of thorn-like structures on the branches. The leaves are roundish oval and sometimes hairy on the underside. But what you need to focus on in most simple way is, if there are apples on the tree, it is an apple tree, and we all know what apples look, smell and taste like. You'll also be able to find a lot of them on the ground. This is also a telling sign of apple tree nearby and is a useful one, as you don't have to gaze upwards all the time to try to find them. Some of them can be picked right from the ground. Just make sure they are in the good shape, are fresh and wash them well before eating. Crab apples are not something most people eat raw. They are mostly used to make jams or maybe added to pies or some other dishes. Yellow and red color are signs of them being ripe, and if you are picking them from the tree and they hold on it too strong, this is a sign they are probably not ripe yet. Here is something maybe a little less popular or known in beginner phases, the hawthorn. In most simple terms, you'll find these as red berries on a smaller or medium-sized tree. Since a lot of things can fit this description, let's take a closer look. It usually has thorny branches, but this can vary per specific species. The leaves of most species have lobed or serrated margins and are somewhat variable in shape. Fruits are clustered together with 5-pointed star shape at the bottom. Inside is a palm containing 1 to 5 nutlets, each holding a single seed. With all these specifics in mind, it is really hard to make an identification mistake. Something that might remotely and superficially resemble this are rose hips, which are more elongated, lack the star shape at the bottom, and are surrounded by much different looking leaves than those of hawthorn. Actually, let's open rose hip and a hawthorn side by side. Inside the rose hip, you will see many small seeds and hairy structures. Inside hawthorn, there is a single large palm that we mentioned earlier, and other smaller structures inside can be seen when that palm is broken. Another kind of superficially similar fruit is the one from the yew tree, which is dangerous and toxic. However, even the fruit itself looks much different. They do not grow in cluster and are on a yew tree which has much different leaves and other characteristics compared to hawthorn. The truth is there are many red berries in nature, but if you follow simple identification steps for hawthorn, you are safe. You can make jams and jellies with them. However, do note that people reported hawthorn jams and some other products end up having a bland taste, so it is usually recommended for those to be mixed with something else. Even the leaves can be eaten when young, but we will have to come back to those in springtime. Palms, however, should be avoided and removed. There are many species of hawthorn native to different regions and sometimes having different uses. So I invite you to research those on your own, depending on your location. All hawthorn species are edible, so as long as they are identified correctly, you are safe. Do note, however, that hawthorn sometimes can cause unwanted effects in some people based on their health and sensitivity, cardiac arrhythmia and low blood pressure being one of those. Also, people taking certain heart medications should avoid hawthorn, so make sure you do your research before trying hawthorn or serving it to anyone else, especially in large quantities. Hawthorn fruits provide food and shelter for many species of birds and mammals, so remember to be responsible when picking them. They are essential food for thrushes during winter, when not much other food is available, and additionally, these birds help out in spreading hawthorn seeds. Remember to forage in a way and place that is clean, safe, and legal, be responsible, and take only what you really need. Happy foraging!